Good evening and Happy New Year. Welcome to the January 6th meeting of the Mayor's Board of Trustees of the Village of Flossmoor. Before we get going, just a few reminders. This meeting is being streamed via Zoom for the convenience of those who are unable to make it in person. We ask that you please abide by the board public comment policies, which include but are not limited to stating your name and address when I call you up to speak, acting with decorum, addressing the public body at large and not a single member of the audience, and then also limiting your comments to 5 minutes per person for a maximum public comment time of 30 minutes. Thank you again and welcome. The time is 7:01. Clerk Legalvo, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Bradley Scott. Trustee Daggett.
Here.
Trustee Driscoll.
Here.
Trustee Lofton.
Here.
Trustee Mitros.
Here.
Trustee Mustafa.
Here.
Mayor Nelson.
Present, thank you so much. We have a quorum. Next up, I have citizens present wishing to address the board. And first up, I have Ms. Andrea Perry. Welcome.
Good evening. At the October 7th board meeting, the village attorney stopped me in the midst of my public comment, citing that I was in violation of this public comment policy, claiming I was political campaigning. The mayor agreed with the village attorney, stating that the attorney was legally correct. My response to the village attorney at the meeting was, "This is wrong. The village attorney was wrong to have stopped me claiming my public comments was political campaigning, and the mayor was wrong to state this action was legally correct." Consequently, I filed a request for review of this incident with the Attorney General's office through its public access officer, case reference 2024 PAC 83560. The public access officer is charged with overseeing and making determinations on disputed cases such as this one. The Attorney General Public Access Officer in his determination upheld my claim that I had not violated the village's public comment policy. The village attorney was not legally correct. The determination states, the board argues that Ms. Perry's public comment amounted to political campaigning prohibited by the board's public comment rules. The board, however, did not demonstrate that Ms. Perry's public comment amounted to political campaigning. At no time during Ms. Perry's public comment did she mention a specific candidate's name or otherwise speak in favor of or against any specific candidate or political cause. Nor did she urge any member of the public to vote one way or another. Instead, it appears Mrs. Perry's comment was intended to convey her strong disagreement with the mayor's conduct during her previous public comments, which should be construed as general criticism of the mayor. This office has previously determined that when criticism involves the conduct of present or former public officials in the performance of their public duties, significant latitude must be allowed. On that basis, this office has repeatedly determined that a public body violates Section 2.0G of the Open Meetings Act when it applies public comment rules prohibiting personal attacks or criticism of public employees or officials by name to restrict comments about the manner in which public employees or officials exercise their official duties. In the future, this office cautions the board to refrain from interrupting members of the public during public comment, except pursuant to its established and recorded rules, which must tend to accommodate rather than unreasonably restrict the right to address public officials and to give increased latitude to comments criticizing public officials in their performance of their public duties. I ask that moving forward, heed to this ruling instead of arbitrarily and subjectively using the public comment policy to stop a person from making a public comment because the board does not like and or agree with what the person is saying. Use this ruling as the criteria to determine whether to stop a public comment or not. Do not use emotions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Attorney Robinson, would you please elaborate on the determination issued by the Attorney General's office?
Yes. The determination was that because you, as village president, allowed Ms. Perry to continue on after she was interrupted by the village attorney, that there was no violation of the public comment aspects of the Open Meetings Act.
Thank you so much. Next, I have Ms. Jackie Riffis. Welcome, Jackie. I should say Commissioner Jackie Riffis of the Community Relations Commission.
Jackie Riffis, Flossmoor resident and a member of the Community Relations Commission. I'd like to invite the village board and the community at large to participate in Flossmoor's observation of Martin Luther King's beloved community with the Day of Service on January 20th. For more than 10 years, this village has inspired and encouraged residents to volunteer for causes that benefit all of us. The Community Relations Commission reminds us that MLK Day of Service is not a one-and-done event. We've been talking about that for a number of years, and in fact, the village has really leaned into that. I'd like to mention two groups who consistently volunteer year-round. That would include our high school kids, representing both sports and academics and special clubs, and also the community at large when the Green Commission calls. When they send out a call, dozens and dozens and dozens of folks show up to beautify our community. So look around and you'll see small and not so small acts of kindness and giving throughout the year. I'm looking for your help this year, and here are some ways, but not all of the ways that you can help on January 20th. You can give blood, tie blankets, make sandwiches, clean a green space, donate much needed hygiene items, or spend time with seniors. Coming back again, our project posts like You Matter Too, Plan for Success, Brothers and Sisters of the Divine Nine, Jack and Jill Monarch Cities, Mayor Michelle Nelson's classical music fundraiser, and our local schools have lots of things in store as well. There's something for everyone. Also worth mentioning is a new host this year, the Flossmoor Firebirds Baseball and Softball, under the leadership of Jim Green and in partnership with an organization called Leveling the Playing Field. Our Firebirds are collecting gently used sports equipment of all kinds to expand access and provide equity within all youth sports. I think this might resonate with many of you. So friends and folks, this is the time of year to collect those knee pads, dusty mitts, tape hockey sticks, golf clubs, volleyballs, cleats, whatever was loved by your kid and put to rest when they moved out. Take the stuff off and donate it. There are drop-off sites, and the Firebirds will pick up from your house as well. Nicole Pizdagna, who is our social media specialist extraordinaire, makes it really easy to find something that calls your name. If you're not on social media or the website, call the village and they'll put you in contact with people like me and help you find just the right volunteer thing to do. Let me close with a quote and a question from Dr. King. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Rivas. While most folks were enjoying the holidays, Commissioner Rivas was working on organizing this 10th annual Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service. So thank you so much for all of the work you did during the holidays to organize that. And thank you for highlighting the Firebirds. I've got 3 lacrosse sticks that I was looking at today, trying to figure out what to do with. So I appreciate that. Next up, I have Pastor Doyle. Welcome.
For the record, D-O-Y-L-E, this land is your land, R-Y, I do that again, as the United States Marine Corps veteran. So, this is directed to you all as a board as it relates to 4 years ago, as well as 4 months from now. So, 4 years exactly today, democracy is respected. If we need a reminder of what happens when democracy is disrespected, just think about the future. Again, that wasn't scripted, that was just reminding exactly 4 years ago today, me and other veterans who have fought and made our lives now for this country. Look at how fast 4 years ago. So that would be my commercial. Now, the transparency. So 4 months from now, May 2025, is National Mental Health Awareness Month. And as you've heard me say in previous, at least one of the previous address to the board, sometimes grief is overwhelming. As a reminder, my mother, who was a fixture here in Flossmoor, particularly race discussions at the University of Chicago graduate with her same age or around age University of Chicago graduates when race was not popular. My mother passed away September 20th. Now for me, even as a clinical social worker, I am a therapist and we'll talk about future meetings. Why? Because it's not for the reason that you're thinking. However, since the pandemic, you can go door to door to Flossmoor to individuals who have lost a loved one or 2 or 3 to COVID or to other reasons, who have not left their house, who go who employ delivery services because they do not want interaction, because not only is mental health real, but the taking of one's life is real. I've learned from NAMI, the National Association of Mental Illness, that the word suicide is being replaced by taking one's life. It's going to take me a while to get used to that, but we get used to the normalcy of not seeing someone and thinking, it would be crossing a boundary by reaching out and asking if that person is okay. But back to Flossmoor. You have a lot of senior citizens who, again, COVID on top of property taxes, and their grief, their depression is deep. And there seems to be this NIMBY attitude. It's not just in Flossmoor, it's everywhere. But since I'm addressing Flossmoor, it's my hope over the next 4 months as it relates to National Mental Health Awareness that during May, there'll be a series of events because the library's up the street, the high school is right there, you have resources in terms of a large number of individuals who have practices who can contribute, volunteer, because again, as Oprah says, you cannot fix what you will not face. So this is again, the personal. I have an older brother who is autistic, who has not said a word since our mother has passed. Again, transparency. And we're in the same place. And I say that because I wake up every day hoping that he'll say a word. Because again, as the oldest who had her mother first, grief can be overwhelming. Again, you're thinking this man's getting up and telling all his personal business. But at the end of the day, hopefully this resonates with someone listening, especially as it relates to grief, especially as it relates to depression, especially as it relates to taking one's life. because that's what happens in isolation when nobody reaches out and says, are you okay? So as a close, 4 years ago, especially if there are pardons, there was deep disrespect in Washington, D.C. that day as it relates to democracy, intimacy, into me, I see. Who do you see in Flossmoor as it relates to their mental health? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pastor Doyle, and I'm very sorry for your loss. Don't have anybody else signed up for public comment, so I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the appointment of John Litchfield to the Fire Prevention Board.
So moved. Second.
Thank you so much. John Litchfield is here with us today. He is an attorney, and his practice focuses on complex labor and employment issues. He is a longtime resident who came back to build a life here in the village of Flossmoor. He went to HF High School, and he's got his partner here, Joe, with him tonight. Thank you. He does a lot of pro bono work for immigration and asylum seekers. He also serves on Miami University's Alumni Association Board of Directors. He is a member of the Illinois State Bar Association, the Chicago Bar Association, and the LGBTQ Bar Association. So giving back is something that is in his DNA, and he does regularly. So thank you so much for your interest. I'm going to start with any questions or comments from the board. I'll start with Trustee Lofton.
Thank you, Mayor. Happy New Year, everyone. I read briefly the resume of the candidate, and I'm very much impressed, and I think his history and his experience will serve us well. So thank you very much for all of it.
Thank you. Trustee Hydros.
Thank you. Welcome aboard. I know you do a great job. The Fire Commission does a pretty good job with the finances they oversee. So thank you, and we look forward to your service.
Thank you. Trustee Musafa.
Thank you for being willing to serve on the board. Happy New Year to you and everyone. It looks like you have a background that would benefit the board. I don't know, I just get that feeling. Thank you. Appreciate everything that you'll do in the future, because I know you'll be doing a good job.
Thank you. Trustee Bradley Scott.
Happy New Year's, everyone. Thank you so much for volunteering to serve in this capacity. It means a lot when our residents come back to the area and see the good that they can do. So thank you so much for raising your hand and volunteering here. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Trustee Daggett.
Yes, so John, your resume is incredibly impressive. To me, the thing that's even more impressive than the resume, which is hard to beat, is your character and your kindness. So I am very grateful that you are willing to step into this role and serve the board, because someone of your character and professionalism is only going to be a benefit to the entire village. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Trustee Driscoll.
Yeah, John, I'd like to thank you as well. I know you got some big shoes to fill there from Carlos. I think you got called away maybe to do more attention to his baseball volunteers in town. But I'm sure you'll do a fantastic job, and we'll probably see you on the training someday.
Thank you so much. If there are no further comments, Clerk Liddell, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Bradley Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Daggett?
Yes.
Trustee Driscoll?
Yes.
Trustee Lofton?
Yes.
Trustee Mitros?
Yes.
Trustee Mustafa?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. Congratulations, and thank you for your service. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you so much. Is there anything anybody would like pulled up? Seeing none, Clerk Liddell, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Daggett?
Yes.
Trustee Driscoll?
Yes.
Trustee Lofton?
Yes.
Trustee Mitros?
Yes.
Trustee Mustafa?
Yes.
Trustee Bradley Scott?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. I'm going to say that we already got our report of the Community Relations Commission during public comment. I was going to mention that, but no need to now. I also want to thank the Green Commission, who is working on a project for the MLK Day of Service. So looking forward to learning more about all of the projects that are happening in the village in just a week and a half. Jeez. 2 weeks. Next up, discussion items. We're going to introduce Village Manager Bridget Wachtel to discuss the mid-year review for 2025.
Thank you so much. And again, Happy New Year to everyone. Included in the board's packet is a copy of our fiscal year 25 mid-year financial review. This is an exercise that we go through annually around this time of the year to analyze both our two largest funds, both our general fund and water sewer fund, on how they are performing the first 6 months of the fiscal year. We take a look at revenues and expenses. We try to project anything that is going to be over or under by 5,000 by the time the fiscal year closes, April 30th, 2025. And we report that out. It's kind of a nice check-in with the board at the start of our budget process. Our departments right now are working on compiling the fiscal year 26 budget. And so in many ways, this is a kickoff to the whole budget season that will be starting here momentarily. This is also an opportunity to check in on our major goals and objectives for the year. And included in the report is reports from each of the departments on how they are progressing with their goals and achievements for this year, and giving a sneak peek into what they anticipate will be on the horizon for fiscal year 26. So that will jump into it. So the study takes a look at the first 6 months, so that's May 1 through October 31st. And first we'll talk about kind of the overall numbers and where they're projecting for the general fund. So at the start of the fiscal year, when the board approved budget in April of 2024, we were anticipating a drawdown of fund balance of about $2.9 million to close the expenditure revenue gap across the total fund. So that's everything from a budgeted operating deficit to actual drawdown expenses from our reserves to be able to pay for capital improvements. In the first 6 months of the budget year, and let me say, of the $2.9 million, $1.8 million of that is attributable to capital and one-time non-operating projects. The most significant of which is about $1.3 million tied to water improvements associated with the water supply distribution system that we have planned over the next 3 years. And we'll talk about the water and sewer fund and the improvements that it's making, but for several years, the general fund has had to pick up the slack, so to speak, and be able to fund the much needed capital improvements for the water and sewer fund that otherwise could not be provided through water and sewer reserves. Within the first 6 months of the budget year, we have approved $183,000 in budget amendments impacting the general fund, and those are both board-approved personnel salaries and police and building and zoning. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail as we get into the detail of these numbers. So the amended budget, budgeted deficit grew to about just under $3.1 million. By the time that we finish this exercise, we're seeing some improvements here. And you'll notice that we're projecting only about $2 million needed fund balance to be able to close that budgeted expenditure to revenue budget deficit. So during the course of the mid-year analysis, excluding grants, our revenues are trending about $323,000 more than budget, and we have about $2.19 million in capital projects that are being deferred to the next budget year, and we'll talk about that in more detail as well. So delving into the numbers, those revenues trending higher than budget include sales tax and non-home rule sales tax, state income tax, ambulance fees, interest income, and we have a new revenue impacting our budget, and that's from the Southland Casino. And we're projecting about $42,000 for this first 6 months, or the remaining 6 months of the budget year, or roughly $80,000 per year that we'll be able to see through that shared revenue agreement. Revenues trending below include utility taxes projected to decline by fiscal year end, and that's really weather dependent. Personal property replacement tax is projected to decline according to the IDOR estimates. Our Class 8 payments to make the village whole are projected at $30,000 less than budget due to lower commercial assessments. We've talked about that as part of the property tax discussion. Cable franchise fees continue to decline over the years, and they're projected to be about $25,000 less by fiscal year end. And property taxes projected to decline by $37,000 due to the extension being less than the levy. And that's actually a really tight number this year for us. We've seen that, be 160 or 200,000. So to be only 30,000 less than levy is excellent. So expenditures there are expenditures significantly less than budget. We're netting about $3 million when you consider the overs and the unders. Those expenses that are projected to be over budget total about $677,000. And I'll highlight some of the more significant ones. Health insurance is projected to be about $165,000 more than budgeted. And that includes about a 4.7% increase, market increase to our costs, but it also includes 3 employees who are on duty disability. We have salary adjustments, mid fiscal year salary adjustments, shift coverage, and police and public works overtime. So various personnel line items that are impacting the budget by about $164,000 in total. And keep in mind that's offset by what you see there in personnel savings of about $115,000. Some vacancy positions, some duty shift vacancies, and some other positions in police and public works that have at least partial vacancies during this fiscal year. Other personnel-related expenditures that are projected to be over budget include our HSA contributions, FICA, and Medicare, and combined that's about $40,000. That's due to new enrollees and actual numbers versus budgeted census. Our public works professional services line item is about $45,000 over budget, and that is related to various reasons, most of which is the aggressive pursuit of grant applications that we've undertaken over the past year. We're also in the midst of a project in the police department with respect to upgrading their fire range, gun range, which has included some analysis of their exhaust system, and that's required us to bring in some engineering assistance as well. Parkway Tree Services is projected to be about $58,000 more than budget. That is really due to more trees and stumps having been removed, and you might recall we had that little tornado back in July, so that certainly can help that line item. Our CBD, Central Business District, Phase 1 engineering is projected to be about $52,000 more than budget. This is really just a matter of timing. We had anticipated more of that work being completed in fiscal year 24, which didn't come to fruition. More of that was completed in fiscal year 25. And keep in mind that is offset by grant revenues as well. And finally, we've reported on this for several years at this point, the maintenance and upkeep of this building continues to rise. And every year we try to be more realistic about those budget figures as we go into the budget process, but we're anticipating about $50,000 more in plumbing and building repairs to support this complex. Of the 3.7 million expenses trending under budget, I'll highlight a few items here worth attention. As I mentioned, we have about 2.19 million capital non-operating items that are being deferred out of this fiscal year. That includes the work on the Central Business District project, water supply, SCADA improvements, which will come to fruition in fiscal year 26, and the replacement of our public works salt bin. So those are more a matter of timing than they are actual real savings to the fund. As I mentioned, we have already talked about the personnel savings that we're anticipating over the course of the budget year, and totaling about 115,000. And then we identified across various account lines about 60,000 in general fund savings from expenses that we don't anticipate being needed by the end of the fiscal year. And so we accounted for that as well. And then our IMRF contribution is about 14,000 less than budget. So taking a look at what our projected fund balance use to support our operations compared to budget. As I mentioned, inclusive of budget amendments, we were looking at just under 3.1 million, and that's from a total fund perspective. That includes all capital and non-operating expenses. As a result of this exercise, that number has decreased to about 2 million. So that's about $1 million improvement. On the operating component of that, we had budgeted about a little over 1 million in budgeted operating deficit. So fund balance needed to support the operating component of our general fund. That number is relatively flat. As a result of this exercise, we're looking at just a little over $1 million projected as of April 30th, 2025. So an additional $8,000 is what we're anticipating will be needed by the end of the fiscal year. However, there's certainly enough fund balance to support this short-term use of fund balance to be able to support operating costs. So our fund balance is projected to increase from 5.2 million to 6.2 million as of April 30th. So we continue to have a very healthy fund balance, and that's inclusive of reserves, as well as being able to account for capital projects and the use of this fund balance to support this budgeted operating deficit. So moving to the water and sewer fund, this is where some good news starts to happen. Taking a look as of April or May 1, 2024, we had projected or budgeted 4.6 million in revenue and 4.1 million in expenses, with a budgeted surplus of about 500,000 as of April 30th, 2025. We've had no budget amendments to this fund yet this year, which is why you see the next two columns blank. That original budget showed some highlights here that sales were trending up. As you know, we're under a new water supply contract, which has very favorable terms with a supply cap at 3% annually, no operations and maintenance included in that contract. And the other expense not needed for several years is going to be hydrant painting, as we went through a big hydrant sandblasting and painting project a couple of years ago. So the water and sewer fund was starting off very healthy, and it is only improving. We want to see the revenue go up and the expenses go down, and that's exactly where we're at. We're projecting to see about 178,000 in growth of revenue, and between the water purchase and some small savings and overtime, about 67,000 less in projected in expenditures by fiscal year end. And so really, as we're moving into preparing for the fiscal year 26 budget, fund balance is projected to increase from 2.4 million to 2.6 million as of April 30th. Our bill to purchase ratio is still hovering around 77% for calendar year 23. We'll obviously be looking at that for calendar year 24 as we go into the budget process. And, you know, the new meters obviously making an impact on the accounting of our water usage. And one thing that I want to highlight in calculating that 178,000 in additional sales, our staff took a very conservative look at this number because, you know, the water meter project ended end of August, beginning of September. This exercise is only through October, and we were taking a look at numbers here in November, December. So on the revenue side, staff looked at obviously the revenue realized in the first 6 months of the year, which includes a couple of full months of all new meters. But then conservatively took a look at adding to it historical averages for the second 6 months of the year. So we didn't make an assumption that, you know, obviously revenue is going to continue to increase, but from a conservative standpoint, took a look at previous years' revenue from November through April, not knowing what our usage is going to be like and what the accounting of that water is going to be like under the new meters. So one of the things that we will do as part of the fiscal year 26 budget, in February, Finance and Public Works is going to do an additional analysis of our meters and being able to take a look at 5 full months of data, which will be much more reliable information than just having a couple of months in this study, and the board will be even more confident as we're preparing the 26 budget to know, you know, the revenue that's being realized, what water and sewer expenses can be moved from the general fund back over to the water and sewer fund where they belong. So overall, a few observations to share. Our general fund is projecting an improved overall fund balance, but we are tracking the use of that budgeted operating deficit. What's helping us this year is the deferred capital continues to help on a short-term basis. And certainly our grant monies that we've been able to receive have also been a significant help on the capital side of the equation. You know, the fluctuation of personnel turnover in previous years has been more significant in this analysis than it has been in this year, and you can see that. And I've said that to the board previously. You know, we've seen short-term relief because of the accumulation of vacancies and the time it takes to fill positions. That's not as significant this year, and you can see it in the analysis. The water and sewer fund is showing a healthy fund balance. That is, and we're seeing growth. As I mentioned, we're going to be doing that additional analysis with the preparation of the 26 budget and starting to move those capital expenses back over to the water and sewer fund. You know, there's several external impacts to our budget and to the health of our finances, and those continue to be the economic fluctuations, supply chain issues, inflation, of course, state legislative decisions that come forward as mandates that become extra costs to our budget. Economic development remains a key priority. You know, the growth in property tax, growth in sales tax are key when other revenues are either stagnant or declining. Property tax remains our most significant revenue source to fund our operations, and right behind that is our sales tax and our non-home bill sales tax. And so our continued efforts on the development of properties in Southwest Flossmoor, Governor's Highway, even Flossmoor Road, those all remain very important important to the future of the village. Overall, our fund, as I mentioned, our fund balance remains very healthy, and we're projecting it to improve compared to what was budgeted for the fiscal year. We're able to absorb this short-term use of fund balance to be able to support operations. We're going to have to see how these projections play out as we move into the budget process, and move forward from there with any needed decisions. We've had a history of being financially very strong, and I don't think that changes. We continue to have very strong policies and practices, and those should continue. And we continue to be, steadfast caretakers of the public's funds and the provision of services to the community. So with that, I will end my comments and welcome any questions that you may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Village Manager. Just a few comments before I go around the desk. One, I'm going to continue to elevate the state for the village's share of the state income tax. That number is going up. It's good to see that. We're also getting a higher percentage of that from the state thanks to lobbying efforts from South Suburban Mayors and Managers Association and other associations throughout the state, which I'm part of. So I'll continue to do that. With utility and cable taxes dwindling, I think it's important that we're looking at other revenue sources, such as the places for eating tax. They're also trying to figure out if there's a streaming tax that we can apply. And so those will be things that we'll bring in front of the board for board discussion. The water and sewer fund is looking stronger and stronger every year, so thanks to everybody, not just this board, but prior boards also, who've done a lot of heavy lifting and committed significant funds to strengthening our water and sewer system. It's good to see this fund being built back up, and also it's great that we can start planning for expenses that we've been paying for from the general fund to come from the water and sewer fund, which is the way it should be, so thank you for that. I want to congratulate Stephanie Wright, our events coordinator, and everybody who supports or sponsors our events. She doesn't drive any heavy machinery, but she does do a heavy lift of bringing everyone together, and she does it very seamlessly, so appreciate her work there. She's done a great job. Also, thank you to Director Novoa on getting residents online vehicle and pet licenses this year. So I think that's a great accomplishment that people will be rejoicing about in the next couple of months. So thank you. Didn't waste any time getting going on grants for federal grants, and so that has paid off greatly for us. That has allowed us to do what Manager Wachtel likes to say, more with less. So thank you to everybody who has been part of that aggressive campaign to bring in more federal and state grants. And then last thing I'll touch on is economic development. It has been a priority for us, and we have a meeting later on this week with a developer who's interested in Governor's Highway, and then next week another meeting with the developer we've been talking to about Homewood Road. So we will keep the board abreast of those developments and also the public, but we're excited. There's a lot of things happening. So I'll start with Trustee Bradley Scott. Any comments or questions?
Yes, thank you so much for the report here. I like the words and the summaries here, but I also like the quick snapshots so that we can digest the information and account for some of the expenses and expenditures and revenue. I did want to get more summary of the $183,623 total dollar budget amendment. I believe that you said that some of this came from police and fire, public works, as well as some improvements to the water meters and water supply improvements. Did I summarize that properly?
The 183,000 in budget amendments were 2 budget amendments since the adoption of budget. One was the salary associated with the Director of Police Services, and the second was the moving our part-time property maintenance inspector to full-time. So those were those 2 budget amendments. And then, of course, the Director of Police Services, that line is offset by the police chief salary line item.
Okay, so what was the dollar amount for taking out the Director of Police Services and the police chief's salary being offset? What was the difference?
So
The 183?
Yeah, I don't have the 2 budget amendments sitting right in front of me right now, but the Director of Police Services was, in round numbers, about 160,000.
The other one was 115, I believe,
Well, the 115.
for the offset for the chief.
Yeah, the 115 is made up of other projected savings across the general fund and different various salary lines. For example, we still have, 2 police officer positions to fill. We've had maybe a month and a half with no mechanic. There's a couple of others as well, I see, and raising your hand there.
Yeah, so the 183 is 157,344 for the Director of Police Service line item, and then it's 26,279 for the full-time property maintenance. And how we came up with that 26,000 is we took into account the dollar amount that he's already made as a part-time property maintenance, and then did a formula to come up with what would be the cost for the rest of the fiscal year as a full-time employee.
Other personnel savings that factor into the 115 include a projected savings to our duty shift program, an expected vacancy in one of our fire inspector positions. Those all make up the 115. So our police chief is budgeted also at about 160,000. Of course, we have an acting chief pay right now, so there is some of that is being absorbed by that acting pay. But we anticipate, as you know, with our Director of Police Services coming in and his credentials that need to be realized by the state of Illinois, we're well into that process at this point and just finishing that up actually. So depending on how that moves forward, there'll be a movement to move to appoint to a police chief, there'll be savings to the Director of Police Services. So it depends on when that timing occurs. Assuming it occurs over the next month, we can anticipate another 80,000 in savings to the police chief line item, and another 80,000, about 80,000 to the Director of Police Services line item, depending on what salary account that's coming out of. So we could be looking at an additional 160,000 savings across both of those line items by fiscal year end, depending on the timing of that appointment.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think this is the 115,000, one page 66. It may just have been a typo for the other. On the first paragraph in line 7, which is offset by the test program.
What's the question?
It's maybe missing a 0?
Oh, yes, it is missing a 0. Yes, 115,000.
Oh, correct. Okay. And I think that we are all proud of the work being made toward the water fund. I know we are not making any grandiose projections on what that savings could look in 2020 and 2018, we are identifying 80% purchase to bill ratio being reached. Are we looking for more than what is the hope here? Obviously 100%, but what is realistic?
Yeah, I'm gonna actually ask John Brumby to comment on that because there is a threshold that we need to try to achieve.
Yes, the Illinois Department of Natural Resources for Lake Michigan water allocation requires us to be at 90% or better. So we've been, like many communities on Lake Michigan water, below that number unfortunately. We want to be better than 90%. We'd love to be around 95 or 98%. But there's very few communities at that level. But above 90 would be where our goal is to get above that. And we're hopeful that we'll see how things work out over the next year of meter performance and pump to bill calculations, and we'll see where we're at by next fall. We'll have a whole year of data. So as village manager Wachtel mentioned, we're going to do a 5-month analysis in February, but that still will only be almost a half year then to see where the numbers performing at. But then once we get a whole year under our belt, because once we had meters done in August, September, when we did that 1-2 month look at it, the calculation, there were cycles that hadn't even built yet with new meters, so we don't even know how those are performing yet. So a little bit of data we have is looking pretty well.
Thank you. Overall, thank you very much for the reports. Congratulations everyone on your contributions here, and those were all of my questions.
Thank you. Trustee Mustafa.
I agree that the summary helps a lot. Thank you very much. It packages all the detail nicely. A couple of my questions are more high level and some pertain to the individual reports from the directors. So the first question I have is, first of all, it is a real positive that we're looking at $6,269,167 instead for the fund balance as of April 30th. That's good news. So is it just a clear subtraction that we're about $2 million under where we started in '24?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, that's the $2,052,858.
Okay, and do you happen to know where we were May 1st, 2023?
I don't have any information on that.
Okay, it would be interesting to see how the fund balance as of May 2024 compares to the fund balance from a year before. Jim was sharing with me that we tend to fluctuate, but we always come back to a healthy position. But I'd like very much, if you could, in a near future meeting, share the fund balances from perhaps the last 2 years, so we can see if there's, how much of a shift there's been year to year. Also, just your opinion, with the $2 million difference between 2024 and the mid-year pace, almost $2 million less, can you share some thoughts about what that means to us for our financial position?
With what respect other than what I've already shared?
If we have a fund balance that's shrunk, so to speak, by $2 million, is there anything that you could add that we need to be, as a board, more cautious about, aware of, focused on?
I think, as we're going through the budget process, we're going to obviously be taking a look at where we can tighten our belts, so to speak, right? But that only comes with certain limitations, because right now we're providing to a level of service that this board and previous boards have established. So I think that as we move through preparing the 26 budget and seeing if these numbers actually come to fruition, I think there could end up being some heavier conversation come summertime all right, how are we going to address this moving forward? Obviously, economic development is a key component of that. Revenue sources, if we want to be able to maintain the level of service that we're providing right now. Revenue sources like places for meeting tax would be another. And then really, we're not, there's only so much we can do with, paper clips, pens, and, that type of thing, right? I mean, we're a service industry, so we have staff to a level of service that the board and the community wants. So we either need to be able to have the revenue to sustain that, or we need to start at some point, and we've talked about this for all the years that I've been here. At some point, talk about, readjusting that level of service to be able to be within where our revenue is. But I think there's also a lot of fluctuations that can happen too. When you take a look at state mandates and pull back on things like the state income tax, there are times where we've gotten ahead and felt very confident and comfortable, and then had the rug pulled out underneath us too at times. So there's some ebb and flow, but I think overall it's these kinds of conversations and checking in of, all right, how are we progressing, how are we tracking, and then taking a look at seeing if that comes to fruition, and then what steps do we want to take to be able to address that if that does indeed come to fruition.
Thank you for that. What you said underscores why I'm curious. One of the reasons I'm curious to see the position we were in the last two budget cycles. And considering it's a little bit over a $2 million deficit, I think what you're saying makes sense, that we're looking at it as carefully as before, and maybe even more carefully to see if some of the projects are one-time projects. We're not going to have large expenditures. We're not going to have general fund hitting the general fund as we have even this year. So thank you for that.
And if I can, I'd be more focused on the budgeted operating deficit. So that's the $1,087,000 projected. That is a bigger concern than the 2 million, because to get to the 2 million, you're talking about capital and one-time non-operating expenses. So, in a critical situation, the village could start to take a look at pulling back on capital projects, and there have been years where we have significantly pulled back. So there are easier steps to address the bigger projects on a short-term basis. And you can't do that forever, obviously. Roads need to get repaired, and the projects that we've identified need to get addressed. But that does become some short-term relief. Taking a look at policies and funding such as the capital equipment fund, that would be another place that the board could take a look at. I'm not suggesting unraveling all of that, because I think you've built a really strong financial practice that a lot of communities haven't been able to do, and to be able to have a plan that supports the replacement, the payment of your capital equipment, cash on hand. Not every community has been able to do that, and if we start unraveling that, in a critical situation, we may have to, but it wouldn't be the first place I would go. But there are some measures that could be taken, but that's the number I'd be more focused on, that $1,087,000 than the 2 million, for those reasons.
Thank you. That matches my understanding and confirms my understanding. Thank you. I wanted to ask about the bond, the $10 million that we borrowed in 2021. It's my understanding that it would be preferable and we understand why we didn't, but it would have been preferable to spend the money in the first 2 years. So have you considered or taken the time to look at the present value of that money, considering that interest rates are higher than they were when we borrowed? How much has it, so to speak, shrunk in value, the remaining $6 million?
And do you want to, actually taking a look at this very recently with our
Yes,
audit.
I actually just, is this on? Yeah. I actually just got an email from our arbitrage service today. So we were assessed as of April 30th since the audit was completed. We don't have a penalty or any money owed to the IRS as of yet. We are about 4 years into this bond, 3 years into the bond money. As of the audit that was just presented last board meeting. So we are utilizing all of our business partners to help make sure that so what happens is after the 3 years, you have to put this money into low interest. So we are utilizing our business partners to ensure that we're not accruing interest high on these bond monies to make sure that we are compliant with the IRS. So as of now, I believe we're definitely, I think we're close to 75% spent. So I know we have some large bills on this claims list that are helping.
Thank you, that addresses the arbitrage question, I appreciate that. But I was also concerned of the value of the money, so to speak, because the purchasing power of that money is less with interest rates higher for anything that we want to use the money for, materials, contractors, whatever we use it for. Has there been any calculation about the present value of the money? Because we've waited to use it?
I do have a spreadsheet that does that. I don't know off the top of my head the present value of the money to date.
I would also be curious, I'm not looking for it down to the penny, but for the board to know that, because it helps advise us going forward if there ever is another opportunity to do a referendum like that there is a price you pay for waiting, not just the arbitrage consideration, but holding the money and knowing that the longer you hold it, it buys less.
Sure.
Thank you. At a more granular level, was overtime included in the total cost of events? Because I noticed it as a separate number on page 70. It seems to be included as a separate number under just overtime, but I was wondering if it was broken out and included when you total event expenditures.
Yeah, event expenditures are separate from overtime, and department's overtime is inclusive of all of their overtime.
Okay, so when we have more events, would it be fair to say we would have possibly more public works overtime?
Depending on the type of event, how much and how many people are slated to be at that event. So if we have to close off more roads, then yeah, there'll be more public works. Depending on how many people were anticipating being an event, we may have more police officers. So it's all about the size of events. I think that was part of the goals with the stuff that we had with this event cycle for this event, was these micro events or smaller events that can touch all these different parts of our community without taxing our police, fire, and public works machines.
Thank you. It would be good to know if that really does happen. If we don't individually monitor it, then the expectation or the theory can't be assessed. So I'm just throwing that out, that if the objective is to reduce overtime for events, then perhaps breaking it out at least first or the second time you use that approach would be very helpful.
We can go, we still have
Just a thought.
We still have the data and information to be able go and compare a previous year's event and match up with the next that we're doing this year. I'll be able to break that out. That all those records of overtime for each one of those days and events are available. We can still do that kind of analysis.
Thank you.
And as we get into the preparation of the annual budget, that sort of analysis occurs of those expenditures.
There's a mention of $45,925. I think, John, this might be on your letter, page 75. Did we make the deadline for using it to offset any cost overruns? Or were there any cost overruns?
Are you referring to the Brookwood Bridge project?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, we're probably not gonna need any of that money. As it's estimated right now, the contracts get closed out. We're gonna be under contract on that project, so we won't have any overages.
Okay.
Even with the additional work that we're looking at doing, we're still gonna be under quite a bit because there were some large items for special waste and things we didn't need to use. We're estimating we're gonna be under on that contract. So we're in good shape. So that grant's probably, the balance of that grant's gonna probably go back to DCEO at the end of it's already the deadline is December 31st, but we are gonna need it, so.
Good news and bad news.
Yep, no, it's good news, we're under, so that's a good thing.
That's good. Also related to your letter, did I miss a mention? Please help me. You have smaller projects that you've used a rating system for the residents?
Oh yeah, those are noted at all in this. These are just larger capital projects. We'll talk about that probably more through the budget process.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure, that's gonna be discussed and it'll be a part of the capital plan and the budget document.
Okay. So then I just have a few questions related to Director Bugner's letter for both building and zoning stuff, 77 and 78. I like that you included some numbers, but I'm kind of curious. Is it possible that when we actually start looking at the budget, we can look at how the zoning reviews have changed year to year?
Sure, we can look over past years, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And the other part was similarly on page 78, when we talk about non-compliance. I've been noticing too that the amount of money that's been determined has gone up for quite a few of the cases.
That's related to the laws that have changed over the
Yes,
last year, so
yes. And so my comment is similar. Could we look at how that's changed?
Sure.
Because is it fair to say there should be more money coming in?
Well, I think the money coming in is dependent on if people pay on their
Okay,
fines.
so we could say potential.
Right.
All right, and some of the numbers are so high, I could see people kind of dragging their feet to pay it.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's see.
Can I ask for clarification on what you're seeking with respect to change in zoning over the years?
I'm just saying that because his letter mentions that non-compliance, the adjudication process has resulted in more cases where money has been assessed. I was just curious to see if there's potential for higher revenue if people pay.
That I followed, it was the previous comment with respect to zoning.
We have done, we do reviews every year, we put the numbers every year.
It says 221 zoning reviews, and I was
And that's
just,
mid-year, so yes, but we do it every year on an annual basis as well.
and I was just curious how that compares to the years before, just for perspective. Because it looks like it's gone up.
And this is mid-year,
Yes.
but it's mid-year, so it's not,
I
it's
mean,
not showing full.
I'm inferring that it's gone up. Okay. So I wanted to ask, if for the fire department, are there goals and objectives for the next budget cycle? I missed them in the letter.
Yeah, we do those with the upcoming budget. So the line that I furnished was just the mid-year goals and objectives from the budget cycle.
Okay, because other letters had the next cycle's objectives. I was wondering if they were just missing from yours.
No, I didn't include them in this one.
There wasn't a requirement to include them where they were known or where there was information to be shared.
That's
That
fine.
they were encouraged, departments were encouraged to include that.
That's fine. I was just wondering if I missed it. Also, I wanted to note that I like the format that you used, Ann, where you just used the budget. That was very clear. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think it's important to note, when we're talking about the present value of money, that while we were holding on to that and working on developing those projects, we were aggressive in going after grant funds. And then also we had the low interest that we're earning on that money. So,
It wasn't a criticism that no other work had gone on. I just felt that it would just be good to know.
Sure.
So that we're operating with full, transparency of the impact of our action.
Sure. Thank you. Trustee Makers.
This was a very nice report. We do it every mid-year. And to me, if you had any doubt about the financial viability or condition of this village, you should be walking out of here with a smile because we're in really good shape. Our balances are really strong, our reserves are strong, and you should be happy with this one because this is not a negative thing. It's a really good report. And you all say in your report the village has cultivated an atmosphere of conservative spending and aggressive pursuit of grants and the highest degree of accountability and trust of the public's funds. That is the truth. We look at everything. We look at it again. And then every 6 months we look at it again, every year. Then we have a 5-year plan that we look at everything. So we're continually reviewing. And basically, you should be really proud of this board because they do a great job. All we do, the majority of what we do is police, fire, and public works. We keep this village up, and I always say that the village, nothing's changed in this village. We just want it to be the best village there is, or could be, and it is. Nothing's changed. I did have a few questions though, John. You talked about billing and the water department being down. Is that because we have fewer leaks this year, or we're getting better, we're getting rid of all the bad pipe?
Are you referring to the overtime?
Well, no, the water, just the billing, the water billing being down.
The supply cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, the supply costs, there's less water we pumped in from Homewood slightly. We're around, I think our last water year that we finished in end of September, it goes from October 1 to September 30th. Every year we were around 293 million gallons, but that number fluctuates a little bit. We're about a year, yeah.
It wasn't because of fewer leaks, or we're still having the leaks with the pipes. So
Our leaks are, I don't want to say too much, we're in a bad time here to say that, but we are down some, we are, because if you look back, we've been up to like 350 million gallons a year pumpage, so we are down a little bit.
And then a healthy fund balance on water and sewer, that's something that I've just never heard. And you're right, it's taken 30 years worth of just kind of picking at it, and now we're getting to the point where we do have a healthy fund balance. And you can't imagine how great that sounds, because it's the one balance we always run a deficit on, and Skiddage always hates it, that we've got the deficit. So that's outstanding news. And I guess just ultimately, I hope we continue on and increase the projects that we're doing where we're repairing roads, we're fixing the cracks, because I think that's going to be a big boost for the village too. But all in all, I just think we're in a real strong position. I thank you for putting it all out there, you guys. You guys are doing a great job, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Trustee Lupton.
I agree with Trustee Michaels, Mike on speaking. This is a great report. It's very understandable, and I do appreciate the the way it's been put together, and more importantly, I appreciate that we're using the term economic development as much as we are, and have been. The impact of that will certainly show itself in this budget moving forward. And I want to thank this board for its support in these issues as they come to us. And the mayor's worked very hard in recruitment and getting developers and people to look at the properties that we own to help build our economy, which will indeed help our tax base. You look at Homewood and what's happening, not only with the casino, but what the casino has done for the other businesses there. And that's going to impact us when we move forward on our efforts here. I also want to shout out to the department heads in reading your individual goals. You've achieved an awful lot in 2024 moving forward. I look at the plans, especially with our police department, where we are focusing on recruitment. I know it's been an issue. I appreciate the fact that you highlighted that in the goals moving forward, so that we can fill those positions and support our crews as we do right now. So, good report. I'm very happy to be part of it.
Thank you so much. Trustee Driscoll.
Yeah, excellent report. Obviously, good news is always welcome, but it was a long time planning for that, the water and sewer, to get that to a positive balance. As long as I've been on the board, that was always a deficit. I think we got to go back and thank both Mayor Braun and Mayor Nelson for the work on getting us off the Harvey water, locking us into Homewood where we got dependable rates, with fixed costs that we can appreciate, sticking with the sewer, the meter replacement, which I think has helped tremendously. But that was a very hard job to shepherd that through. I know that you and Kathy did a tremendous amount of work on shepherding that through. Director Brunke did a fantastic job. I mean, at one point we were projecting costs to make that switch over up to like $6 million. I can't remember the exact figure that you brought it in under. It was a fraction of that. So you did an excellent job. And that's what I think is now we're seeing those savings there. So I want to say congratulations to all of you on that. My one question was just on the casino revenue. You said it was like 40,000, which is a projection of like 80,000 a year. But my understanding is that's only for 2 years. Is that correct or not correct?
That is not my understanding.
Okay.
So, I don't have confirmation of that.
Yeah, I've heard from some people at Homewood that theirs is not going, theirs and Hazelcrest is not going, but other ones that share this deals for like 2 years. So I guess maybe we could just check that out and like get that answer.
Absolutely.
That's it. Thank you all for the excellent report.
Thank you so much. Trustee Day.
Yeah, thank you for the report, and I appreciate that this is not the real deep dive. This isn't the get totally into the weeds that comes in. I talked to Director Bo, and you guys are already starting to get into the weeds on the real details of what we're going to be moving forward. But I like that we get the temperature of where we're at and where we thought we would be 6 months ago. Okay, now where are we at? I also really do appreciate that one of the things that I've realized being on the board is that Flossmoor has a long history of fiscal responsibility. So when you look at the constraints and the issues that we have with our budget, it's not because there's a bunch of foolish spending or things that are being purchased or done that are not needed or frivolous. It really is just don't have a lot of tax revenue from business and sales tax. And then our sewer and water fund. When I came on the board, the sewer and water fund was the biggest concern. And from a property inspector's perspective, when you don't take care of the infrastructure, it costs you more as you go. So I knew we had to bite the bullet, and I appreciated that this board bit the bullet and went ahead and did the meter replacements and started to do more of the focus is we have to improve the infrastructure. And I think it's great that we are not using as much water as a village. That's a good sign. So as the meters get replaced, we're billing, and then I think also as we're able to work on some of the infrastructure stuff where we don't get as many broken pipes, sorry I said it, then that's good. That's fantastic. Yeah, I think I just heard water meter when I said that. So I appreciate that. And so I do have a few questions. And if I'm putting a cart ahead of the horse on some of these, just tell me. One more good positive statement, I think, when you look at the $45,000 that we spent pursuing grants, the reports that we've gotten on how much money we've gotten from grants, it shows that that additional spending has been so some of these extra expenditures, you gotta look at it for what they are. So I appreciate that that's brought in a lot more money, and I cannot imagine where we'd be if we did not have the grant funds from all we've gotten over the last, since I've been on the board. The directors have done a stand-up job, well above and beyond what it would be expected to get that money in, so that's fantastic. So a question on the difference of what we were projecting and what is actually there. Would it be a reasonable expectation that what is budgeted and what we're actually seeing, that difference is in the positive this year, is that going to, would it be a one-to-one impact on the budget next year where we can expect that we're just going to see all of that stuff hit? Or is that something that when you're looking at that, that's going to offset some of the costs on the budget, or will we be making different decisions on maybe some of the stuff that was kind of that way? Okay, so some of the things that we're kicking the can down the road to take care of next year is reflected in why we're not spending as much this year. When we take on those for next year, does that hinder us in some of the other things that we were planning to do in fiscal year 26, because now we're having to do these things then?
No, it's more of the timing,
It's just
the budget.
It's just where it's at.
Exactly.
Okay, great. That answers a few of my other questions. So, okay, and this is the one that I might be getting ahead of myself on this one. So if the water and sewer fund, let's just say hypothetically, it continues to perform where it is now and it looks great, would it be reasonable to expect that we might be able to consider not having increases in future passed on to residents?
That's a board decision. I think we'll continue to do the analysis this year. Would you be able to take, a year, 2 year, I don't know what the number would be, reprieve of a water decrease perhaps. But you also have to balance that with the fact that we have never built into our rate increase the cost to be able to fund future capital improvements. So, yes, could you provide some reprieve? That very well could be a possibility, and that's going to be a policy decision from the board.
But then as a board, we're going to have to make the decisions to do that, then it can affect how much the infrastructure we improve, which can get us right back in the same situation if we don't take care of it. So, okay. So the answer is yes, I'm putting the cart in the horse.
Yeah, and we'll be taking a critical look at all of that, which is, to John's point, why we're going to be taking a look also at the revenue side of it, right? So there'll be a detailed analysis that comes back to the board.
Awesome. I appreciate it. The only other thing I would say is that we just got to keep focusing on our economic development. That's the place that we have to grow, and we've got some money that we can do it. So I appreciate all the efforts that everyone involved has been going after, trying to find someone who's a viable option to really bring something that's beneficial to the village as a community, but also to our budget. So this is all the hard work on that. Lots been done already. So that's all I have.
Thank you, and just another thanks again to my board members here. The work that you do to set policy, and then the work that our professional staff does to then run with those policy decisions is invaluable to the village, so thank you all. We do not need to go into executive session tonight, so I will skip to other business and start with Trustee Musafa.
I don't know if this comment of appreciation can reach the recipients, but I wanted to thank Dr. and Mrs. Edwards and Mr. Leaf, who agreed to sign the memoranda of understanding for the license plate reader cameras. because we don't know when the county is going to approve permits. So I wanted to thank them for allowing us to install them on their property. Also, I would like to echo the appreciation. We don't have a lot of people working in any department. I mean, we always see the same names, the same people, because we don't have a lot of people. So a lot of people do a lot of work. And it's not an 8-hour-a-day job. I bet everybody back there works like 7.5 hours a day. So thank you. The other thing I wanted to ask is of our village manager. Director Stout has been with us several months now, and I wondered if we're looking forward to an update on his certification process in the near future.
Certainly, as I mentioned, we're well into that process, and I think within the next couple of weeks here, we'll be able to give the board an update.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you. And Happy New Year again.
Thank you. Trustee Bradley Scott.
I just wanted to, okay, I was afraid to lose again. I just wanted to say to everyone again, Happy New Year. We are entering part of the season where prayerfully in Chicagoland the weather is going to cooperate, right? We're going to have sunny skies and so forth, but it seems like when the weather just gets a little inclement, we see some tragic stories and so forth. So just pressing that everybody remains extremely safe, that we just take extra precautions during this time of year. Otherwise, I'm looking forward to a great year, and
Thank you so much. Trustee Day.
Yeah, just a note of things, a lot of our village employees over the next couple of weeks, when it's going to be coldest, they're spending a lot of hours outdoors. One of which is Officer Deegan, who's always right down here on the corner of Sterling and Flossmoor Road, making sure our pedestrians are safe. But I know the Public Works, Fire Department, Police, you guys are always outside. I feel a kinship to that, because I spend a lot of my time outside when it's cold too. Layers are important, but thank you for the service. I never hear a complaint. Officer Deegan's always waving. Public Works is always waving, saying hello. So just the service with a smile, when I know it's not easy, is much appreciated, and I know a lot of the community also appreciates it. So please convey that to your employees. We really do appreciate all the hard work, and putting yourselves in really uncomfortable and sometimes unsafe weather environments is much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Driscoll.
No questions. No questions or comments, just want to wish everybody a happy New Year.
Thank you. Trustee Lofton.
Yes, again, Happy New Year, and it's going to be a great year for us and the Bears. I think we're year off the win, and let's keep it going.
Trustee Micros.
There's an optimist for you. Happy New Year and good night, kind of early tonight, so be careful going home.
Thank you. Clerk Lombardo.
Yes, I have a quick reminder. I was hoping Commissioner Rivers would talk about it, so I wouldn't have to, but for the Dr. Martin Luther King Day of Service, I will also be hosting an event, a collection for an organization called Bricks of Hope. We'll be collecting new Lego sets, from the very tiny size Lego sets to the very large, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. right out in this hallway here, just like we did last year. Bricks of Hope is an organization that distributes the Legos to hospitals in the Chicagoland area and beyond for distribution to children, even older teenagers, like my son received when he was undergoing cancer treatment. They give them these new Legos while they're in the hospital. So it's a really great program, and I would appreciate everyone's support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Village Attorney. Acting Village Attorney.
You'll have competent legal advice here if Candy does show up next meeting, like she's supposed to. It's a pleasure being here with you all, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Village Manager.
Nothing, thank you.
All right. Quick shout out to Director Brenke. We didn't get as much snow or ice as we were anticipating, but the roads were ready, so thank you so much. Keep up the great work there. Everybody sharpen your skates. Homewood-Flossmoor Park District expects the ice to be frozen, the water to be frozen, by this weekend. So we should have outdoor skating in Flossmoor Park, which is a great partnership that we have with them, and we appreciate their efforts. And last but not least, January 19th is my 5th annual classical music concert for my Dr. Martin Luther King Junior Day of Service project. It is at 4 p.m. at Flossmoor Community Church. We have 3 young performers plus a professional musician coming from the Music Institute of Chicago. So I'm thrilled to welcome 4 young performers plus the Music Institute of Chicago professional. 2 of those performers have played for Flossmoor before. One of those performers, he's in his senior year of high school, and this is his 4th year playing for us. So I hope you'll all join me. The musicians are incredible. They'll blow your socks off. You'll think that you're sitting at the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. So please join me there at 4 o'clock, Flossmoor Community Church, Sunday, January 19th, and then I look forward to seeing everybody on Monday, January 20th at our Day of Service activities. Thank you so much. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, have a great night, everybody. Thanks for coming.
What's that?